All right, it is episode 2 of the Houston High School Huddle. Matt Stepp joins us now. He's back in the States. So it's got to be football time, and football time does happen in 2 days on Thursday. We're going to be turning them lights on, man. Those guys with those 150-foot ladders that got to climb up there and change each one of the light bulbs, they better have that thing straight because we're cutting them lights on. We're leaving them on for 7-8 hours up there. We're ready to start playing some ball. I don't know how excited you are. Well, I know just by knowing you as a person, but how excited are you for this season to get kick-started?
Yeah, I'm in my dark dungeon right now, getting my last-minute preparations on for the season, and yeah, I'm fired up. I mean, it's a wonderful time of year. It's hot, but it's football season, and there's just nothing like, for me, driving when especially later in the year when it gets dark early. But when you see those lights in the distance and you're pulling up to the stadium, it's just, even though I'm in media and I don't care who wins or loses, I still get those butterflies and just get fired up because I just love what I do. And so it's
and you can really see those lights in the distance when you go into the small school games. You can
yeah.
probably see them a good 8-9 miles away.
Oh,
be like,
yeah,
exactly. They're coming.
Yes,
I'm coming up on you.
There's nothing like it. There's nothing like pulling up in the stadium and the lights are going, the bands are playing. It's the best time of year.
It is pretty awesome. And like I said, I've told you guys before, I moved down here from Buffalo, and Buffalo, them game, you don't hear no bands because their half times were 12 minutes, man. They're like, we got to get home. It's cold as ice out here. Let's go ahead and forget all that mess. Let's get the heck out of here.
Yeah, Buffalo, bad high school football, great pizza, right? Great pizza.
There you go. And some good hot dogs, too, if you go to the certain spots.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's talk about Houston football. Let's forget about this Buffalo stuff. Let's talk about Houston High School football. Week 1, we went out and we got the same 12 coaches we had last year for our coaches poll. They threw out their preseason rankings, and just taking a look at them, obviously you're going to see a lot of 23-6A in the top 5, which you do. You see 3 of them up there. Is there any surprises in there? I was kind of surprised myself that Willis was so low, and I know it's because Lagway moves on, and they haven't really established themselves as a program. If you think about, say, DFW, they have a Byron Nelson team there that finally established themselves as a program, so you can maybe trust them year in and year out. Maybe that's why Willis is so low. But is there anything else that kind of shocked you on that?
No, I think the coaches did a great job, actually. I tore this thing apart, and you could nitpick on certain teams. Cy-Fair at 14 may be a little high just because of how young they are, but they have the pedigree, right?
Right.
Whereas Willis had a great year last year, doesn't have the pedigree, so they're a little bit lower. Fulshire, a new team to 6A, cranking in the top 20 there. So honestly, Wizzy, I think the coaches did a good job, man. I got to give them a pat on the back. I just didn't see anything egregious that was out of line with it. I mean, I thought they did a good job. I think once you get past, your top 15 or so, 14, 15, you can kind of nitpick and maybe, take a team out at 20 and slide a team in, that kind of thing. But overall, I thought the coaches did a good job. So kudos to the Dirty Dozen you got there in H-Town.
The Dirty Dozen. All right, we got game time coming up, so we're going to kind of go through the 6A and below, but we'll start with 13-6A and some of the games that kind of stick out to me. Grand Oaks and Spring, this one sticks out to me only because in our last podcast you talked a lot about how Sean McDowell turned this thing around, and then you have Spring that's kind of, ever since Trent left, it's kind of going the other direction. What do you feel about this game?
I really think this could be a real coming out party for Grand Oaks. Quarterback Grant Smith is one of my favorite underrated players in the area. I think Grand Oaks is going to handle Spring in this one. Spring, you're right. Since Coach Miller left and went up the road to Willis, they've kind of had struggles. They did get in the playoffs last year. Coach Singleton and his squad got into the postseason last year, but I really feel like Grand Oaks is a team on the come up, and I think Grant Smith and company are going to have themselves a nice game.
That would be a good start to the season for them. And if you look, another team from 13-6A is New Caney, who we really haven't talked about since Riscano moved on, but they're taking on a tough 5A squad with Barbers Hill. I think that's an interesting game, and I think it could be a 5A win right there for the Eagles.
Yeah, New Caney, Mike DeWitt, second year there at New Caney, former head coach in DFW and Coppell. The Eagles struggled a lot last year, losing a great senior class, going through a coaching change. I think they'll be a little bit better this year, but they're in a really tough district. 13-6A, Conroe ISD, we talked about it on the preseason show. has some good depth, and I really feel like even though New Caney may be improved, I still feel like they may struggle some. Barbers Hill doesn't get talked about a ton. Like Barbers Hill always kind of flies under the radar, and then Carl Absek's squad hauls off and wins 9 games just about every year.
Yeah.
We're looking at them in the area playoffs, playing a second round playoff game. So, I feel like this is a game where I agree. I think the 5A team gets the edge here, and I think Barbers Hill will handle New Caney in a battle of Eagles there, the New Caney Eagles and Barbers Hill Eagles. But I like the 5A in this one. I think Barbers Hill doesn't get enough credit, and Coach Absek doesn't get enough credit for the job that he does.
Absolutely, and Barbers Hill's kind of proven to be a team you don't want to mess with in the playoffs if you starting early on. 2 years ago, they upset Marshall, like we talked about, and then last year was that crazy game with Richland, which that game lasted forever. It was an offensive craziness.
That was one that I bet if you asked Coach Absek, they kind of let that one get away.
Right. That was a second round game too, so they ended up going 2 rounds there. But our next game is 14-6A. We got Spring Decaney against Port Arthur Memorial. I'm interested in how Decaney is going to. They got 2 big time athletes in there with Tanook Hines and Townsend. How are they going to play against a Port Arthur team that's probably going to get in here to the Houston area and get some games in here to play before they start playing district play?
Yeah, if you like speed and athleticism, this is a game for you. There's going to be a ton of talent on the field. You're right. Tanook Hines is a really special athlete out wide for Decaney. I do wonder about Decaney. Consistency has been kind of a concern for them, especially at the quarterback position. When Decaney gets consistent quarterback play, they typically have a good year. When they're inconsistent, then they're typically a one and done type team. They'll be in the playoffs. They'll have more than the Aldine schools. But this is a tough matchup. Port Arthur is is that game in spring or is it in Port Arthur?
That's a good question. I think it's in Port Arthur, to be honest with you.
It's a tough road trip. That's a long road trip for Decaney if it's in Port Arthur, and that's a home field advantage in my opinion. You go out from spring all the way out to PA, and that's a tough place to play. And Port Arthur is very talented. They've got a really good junior class now. They played a ton of sophomores last year. All those guys are juniors this year, so I think it's gonna be a very competitive game. I'll give the edge to Decaney. I do think there's still a 6A team playing down in 5A. It'll be close though. It'll be a 1-score game, but I like Decaney to pull it out.
Yeah, and maybe you have them winning by a little bit more than 2 or 3 points because it actually is a home game. They're playing at Ford.
Okay, if they're playing at Ford,
so.
I may take Decaney by like 10-12 then. But
there you go.
Yeah, Port Arthur will keep it competitive. I think that home field advantage for Port Arthur is worth a touchdown.
Yeah, exactly. Now, this next one, I'm really going to keep my eye on. We're going to have cameras at this one. Spring Westfield against C.E. King. When we were going over the rankings, I was too scared to pipe up and say I thought Spring Westfield was a little too high. Now, if next week, if somehow they lose to C.E. King, and they're still up there at 5, I'm going to say something. But this week, we're going to kind of live on their name there and the athletes they bring out to Westfield. But what do you think about that game being played in Sheldon?
Yeah, Westfield obviously going through that late coaching change with Coach Desmar Black taking over for Matt Meekins. Very late. I think that was in July. It was right around coaching school.
Yeah, July.
I think it was a little after coach. Yeah, it was after coaching school when it happened. So end of July when that coaching change happened. So interested to see how Westfield handles everything. They've got they do get their quarterback Miles Dennis back. They've got Joseph Albright returning as well. And they got tradition. They got pedigree. Westfield, they're going to get kind of that respect ranking because they've been doing it for year after year. They're kind of a sure thing in a lot of ways. The coaches like know that, and they'll lean to the proven commodity until they prove them otherwise. So C.E. King, a relative newcomer on the block. I will say C.E. King, I've been impressed with their staying power. They've graduated some good senior classes.
Yeah, and
they continue to put out good football year in and year out. Very tough district. They get overshadowed by the likes of North Shore, Tascasita, and Summer Creek in their district. But C.E. King, they've put on a 3-4
rounds.
Yeah, 3-4 round playoff team in a couple of years. So they're always kind of in the mix. I'll go with the tradition and pedigree in Westfield in this one, but I think it's a very close game.
Yeah. And like always, Westfield's playing that ridiculous non-district schedule because they got
it's great.
They get Hightower, and then they get North Shore after that, so it's going to be crazy. Another game that we're going to have a camera at is on a Thursday. Klein Kane heading up to Cy-Fair to play them. We already talked a little bit about Cy-Fair. This could be a nice test for them, maybe to prove something to you as they take on Klein Kane.
Yeah, this is a chance for this young, inexperienced Cy-Fair team to really kind of test themselves against a veteran Klein Kane team. Kane goes 8-4 last year, gets the second round of the playoffs, and James Clancy welcomes back 15 starters. So they've got a veteran ball club that's looking to challenge Collins for that district championship in 15-6A, which is always very, very tough and very, very deep. I think if this game was being played week 7 or week 8, you might give the edge to Cy-Fair, but week 1, with as young as Cy-Fair is, I kind of like Klein Kane and the experience in this one. I kind of lean to the Hurricanes over Cy-Fair in this game.
Yeah, I was thinking so too. And I think earlier this year we were talking, and you think Stratford may actually take that 17.
I do. I actually talked to Todd Rankin a couple days ago and talked about his team a little bit. And their frontline talent is great. They don't have a ton of depth. Depth is a concern.
No.
A couple of injuries for Stratford could really derail them. They don't have the depth of a Cy-Fair, but their frontline talent is top notch.
Well, also out of 15-6A, I threw this one in here because I feel like that may be another game where a 5A team beats a 6A because Magnolia is taking on Montgomery Lake Creek. Obviously, Magnolia's, this will be their very first game in 6A, so let's not get too crazy here. But that talent that we talked about with Lake Creek, is that a chance for them to pull off that 5A over 6A? And that's going up 2 classifications, right? They're 5A Division 2.
Yeah, Lake Creek's a D2 school, yeah. So I think this is going to be a game of styles. So Magnolia does not want to get in the shootout with Lake Creek because you're not going to win a shootout when you're going Tyvon Byers, Eli Morcos, and that Lake Creek offense. So they don't want to get in a shootout. They want to keep it a low-scoring, kind of plodding type game. So it's going to be I think if the game gets into the 30s, anything above that, Lake Creek rolls. Magnolia's chance is really to keep this game in the 20s, low-scoring, kind of physical, kind of beat-em-up football game. But I think Lake Creek is and I'm actually impressed. It's a little bit of a schedule upgrade for Lake Creek. The last couple of years have gone 12-1, haven't been challenged too much in non-district. So I kind of like Coach Kennedy scheduling up a little bit and trying to get his team prepped for a really tough district and potentially a playoff run. So I lean to Lake Creek, but I think it'll be close.
It could be close. It could be a close one. Another game I threw in there from 15-6A is Klein Oak against P&G. Mainly because P&G spent a lot of time in the Houston area this year. I know they do normally, but this is like 8 out of 10 games. They're getting accumulated to what's going to happen here and when they get into district play. Talk to me about this game. Is this another 5A or 6A team?
Yeah, I think so. Actually, P&G. Typically when 5As play 6As, the biggest difference is in the trenches. Right, that's where the bigger schools usually have the edge. It's not a problem for P&G. P&G's as good up front as anyone in the state at any level. They're that good. Jackson Christian, elite offensive lineman. They're going to have a big edge over Klein Oak in the trenches, in my opinion. And they've got the quarterback back. The young quarterback who was a sophomore, led him to a state championship, is back. Got to replace some skill guys around him, but I think P&G will find that. Klein Oak, I think they've had some struggles the last couple of years, and for a long time they were kind of the program of record there in Klein ISD. They had some great years there under previous coaching staff. So I like P&G in this one. I think Klein Oak's going to want to get this into a shootout, though. Klein Oak can kind of get in the shootout, get their athletes in space, do some things. Then I think they can give P&G some trouble. But I think P&G's up front is just a little too much for them.
I got you. Another one I'm interested in from 15-6A is Tomball and Stratford. We talked a little bit about Stratford. And Tomball always starts off out of the gates not so well over the last couple of years, but they kick it into high gear when they have to make the playoffs to go in and win some in there. But your thoughts on this one?
Very interesting matchup, and you're right. That's kind of what I'm wanting to see. Does Tomball kind of get out to their usual slow start? Credit to them. They pick it up in district play, win the games they need to do, and then when they get in the playoffs, they're a challenge for a lot of Houston teams. So this is a veteran Stratford squad. They've been through the battles. This is a super talented ball club. I like Stratford in this one, especially because Tomball's not his history, because it's not that long, but their recent early season struggles. I'll go to Stratford in this one.
I can dig it. Can take it. But you're in 16-6A now. We're talking about Bridgeland taking on Pearland Dawson. They got to travel down to Pearland. Talk about this matchup because Bridgeland always kind of stacks their non-district. They're doing it again this year because they got Tompkins next week. Talk about how they're going to do with those two big offensive linemen against Pearland Dawson.
Yeah, Bridgeland. I mean, and then the week after they play Tompkins, they got Ridge Point. So,
Yeah,
I mean, it's a loaded non-district schedule.
One of those games you're doing, right?
Yeah, Ridge Point. I'll be at the Ridge Point game week 3.
All right.
Tough travel. I mean, it's not people outside of Houston are like, oh, they're just going, 20 minutes down the road. No, it's a good hour in traffic from Bridgeland over to Pearland. So it'll be it's a little bit of a road trip. Dawson, the rig is always a tough, or the nest. I guess when Dawson plays, or they call it the nest. Tough place to play. Great press box spread, by the way, Wizzy. Pearland, from what I've heard, has a great press box spread down there, at least from the past. I think Bridgeland, the two big offensive linemen, they got the quarterback back. I think this is a really chance for Bridgeland to kind of have a year, kind of like they had when Connor Wegman was quarterbacking them. I think they're going to have a big year. Dawson's going to be really talented at skill spots, but up front, Bridgeland's got a big edge. Those two big uglies on the offensive line do some work, protect their quarterback. I think Bridgeland's going to have their way with Pearland Dawson in this one.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. You telling me that
the
Bridgeland
quarterback name? Jet Lewis. Jet Lewis.
Yeah, Jet Lewis. That's
good quarterback. He had a good year last year, and he does a great job operating that Bridgeland attack.
That's cool. Now I got to put myself on a Pearland game because your boy likes to eat.
Yeah,
Cy Rance is taking on.
It's been a little while.
It's been a while. They may have switched it up to.
You may want to confirm with sources.
Nachos.
Last time I was in Pearland, it was like, I don't want to say it.
But I got a freelancer going there on Thursday night, so I'll have to see what he says
press box and see.
Yeah, take some pictures or something. All right, Cy Rance is taking on Tompkins. Tompkins took some hits in graduation. They got their big athletes just left town because they had to graduate. They can't stay. There's nothing after being a senior, so they took some hits. But they always have somebody coming back. And this week they're going to be taking on the Mustangs. Your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, a lot of questions in this game. You got Cy Ranch, new head coach Will Blaylock in his first game, coming in from Lubbock Estacado. The thing about Cy Ranch is they went through spring football. So Blaylock has really only been coaching these guys 2 weeks. They haven't had a ton of time, or 3 weeks, I guess. But they haven't had a ton of time to really implement the system because they went through spring football. So I expect Cy Ranch to get out of the gate slow, a little bit sloppy. I think on paper, if you just take the talent, I think Cy Ranch has the edge. R.J. Redis is a great corner. Owen Cassette at quarterback, very underrated signal caller there for the Mustangs. Blaylock's son, Deuce Blaylock, coming in from Lubbock, is going to be a starter for them, most likely at tight end. Big physical kid who can do some damage, also can play quarterback. Tompkins has questions, but they got the stability on the coaching staff. And I feel like they've been, they've kind of by now earned the respect where you expect them to kind of reload and be a very good team. So in week 1, I'll pick Tompkins. Maybe if they played week 9 or week 10, as Cy Ranch kind of got things together, I might flip it. Right now, week 1, I'm going to go with a young and unproven Tompkins team. This is the kind of game that could go either way because I feel like both teams have a lot of questions.
Yeah, you talk about Tompkins having a lot of questions, but head coach Todd McFay always seems to have a lot of answers too. So
you give him the benefit of the doubt. Yeah, you give a team like that the benefit of the doubt because
he earned that. The team that really hasn't earned the benefit of the doubt, but they very good this year is Katy Jordan. They're taking on Cy Creek. Newly Michigan recruit commit Andrew Marsh is out there. They still got Chad Gasper. They got the skill position guys. Could this be their year where they maybe hop over Tompkins and finish second in district there? And I'm already giving it to Katy. That's a force of habit. You always end up giving it to Katy.
Pretty much every year but one in the past 20 years, it's been Katy.
This could be a style points game here against Cy Creek. I mean, I feel like they should win, but how do they win it?
They got to replace their quarterback. That's a question for Jordan. They got to replace the quarterback, I believe, but. They got 2 really good running backs. Chad Gasper and Tanner West are both good players. They got Marsh.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Tanner West. He's young.
The defensive line, I think, should be improved with Jimmy Frisco being healthy. He battled injuries a lot last year. getting him healthy as a pass rushing threat off the edge should help the Jordan defense. We got to answer the quarterback question. I think the trenches overall have to improve. However, Cy Creek is in a full rebuild, in my opinion. It's first game for new head coach Devion McKinney, former North Shore assistant, former Cy Ranch offensive line coach. He's actually a native of North Texas. He actually graduated from Sherman, so he's got ties to the DFW area as well. So I think this is kind of the game that could get away from Cy Creek. I think, like you said, I think this could be a style points game for Jordan, and we might see some of their starters with their pads off in the second half of this one. I think Jordan runs away with it.
Yeah, Cy Creek kind of took a blow that they couldn't really recover from when that quarterback transferred down to San Antonio a couple years ago with Brad Jackson.
And then the two twins, the Richardson twins, went over to Cy Springs, and then now you have a coaching change. So it's been a lot of turnover at Cy Creek, and I think it's going to be a rebuilding year for them for sure, in my opinion.
They were hanging around that 4 or 5 spot until all those transfers left, and now I just don't even feel like they're in the running for a playoff spot now.
Yeah, I think this year's been tough.
A tasty Thursday game, which there's a lot of them, by the way, if y'all check the schedule this week. A tasty Thursday game is Lamar against the Atascocita.
Playoff rematch.
And you know Lamar's got hit with ridiculous graduation. All those skill position guys are gone, but you can't say enough about their offensive line. And maybe that keeps Atascocita at bay. They're trying to get in on them, but this seems like one Atascocita will pull away. But again, you cannot discredit Michael Lindsay for he's not going to get any tough talent in his district, so you got to schedule.
Sure, yeah. It's almost like South Oak Cliff and Dallas-Fort Worth. They have to schedule so tough in non-district because they're going to dominate in district play. So in order for them to be ready for the playoffs, they have to play these kind of games early. But that very similar thing with Lamar. You're right, though. Graduation hit them hard. The offensive line should be strong, but they're really replacing everybody else. Atascocita beat them in the third round of the playoffs last year. They bring more back. They've got Torrey Blaylock back. They've got Corday Mack, two of the most elusive playmakers in the state of Texas at any level. Dynamic players. Just feel like Atascocita's got a little too much for Lamar. I mean, they beat them last year, and I don't think Lamar's not, in week one, not near at that level they were when they played at NRG Thanksgiving weekend, I believe, last year. So I think Atascocita.
They beat them pretty good. It was
a low-scoring game early. I think it was scoreless at halftime, and then Atascocita I think they got a pick six in the second half and kind of pulled away, if memory serves.
They got so much speed, man. All those track guys that go over to play. Didn't they win in track?
They were state champs. Yeah, they won state champs.
They were state champs in trap, and those guys are coming over to you hit them first. That second layer is not going to get them.
Yeah, you can't let those guys get the edge or get in the open spaces. They're going to make you pay.
Well, Katie's heading down to Dickinson, which I think is an interesting game as well. Katie, you probably can't name all their offensive linemen except for maybe McGath, but they're still big and they're still opening up holes. Dickinson is, as they usually do, they're scheduling big in the non-district. And they got those two guys that are both tight ends, but I believe they label one as a receiver with Scobie and I forgot the other kid's name, but you can remind me because you're smarter than I am. But that should be an interesting game down in Dickinson. I told my shooter to go down there and make sure he has his off with him, or the mosquito bites are going to be coming.
Oh, yeah.
So often.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. What do you feel about that one?
You go with the proven commodity here in Katy for sure. Dickinson always, though, they never they don't seem to win these games, but they always seem to kind of hang around and make a good accounting of themselves. They're always going to have talent. They're probably going to have a really good tight end. It seems like Dickinson just grows great tight end, Division I tight ends on trees. They tend to do a good job. I think they match up with Katy. That's kind of a good matchup for Dickinson, for them to kind of keep it competitive. But I'm really excited to see this Katy team this year. I've talked to a lot of Katy people, and there's kind of a quiet confidence about them this year. A lot of folks down there really feel like this is going to be a really, really good Katy team. And so I think they played a lot of young guys last year. You look at it, you're like, oh, they don't have that many starters back, but they rotated in a lot of guys. So I expect Katy to kind of do what they do and win kind of a grimy. I don't think they're going to blow Dickinson away, but I could see a 13-14, a 35, 34, 21 kind of win for Katy. Dickinson's going to get some points, and they'll keep it competitive, but hard to, I don't pick against Katy too often, and not picking against them this week.
Right. And one thing a Gary Joseph team doesn't do is look ahead. And next week it's our game of the week when they take on Atascocita. Especially since that game was such a barn burner last year. I believe Atascocita pulled it out by a couple of points. They won't look ahead, though. That's not what they do over there at Katy Land. There is a game I skipped over only because you briefly talked about it. North Shore taking out South Oak Cliff. So these guys are regulars at AT&T Stadium over the last 2 years. Both of them fell short of getting another finger sized up for a ring. Sock coming down there. Sock doesn't even really travel all that well unless – I mean, they won't even travel that well down the block half the time, but until the playoffs start happening.
Sure.
But I don't know what kind of crowd they're going to bring down there. I don't think very much. And they're
Probably
going to take on a North Shore team.
Yeah.
They're going to take on North Shore, and I'm expecting a big win for North Shore, but the fact that Sock is coming down there, it just tells us that they're trying to boost their schedule and gives them a chance to play a team that's used to gives North Shore a chance to play a team that's used to being in championship games.
Yeah, I mean, they're playing Duncanville next week, and then the week after they're playing Longview. So it's a
right.
It's a brutal non-district slate there. I actually talked to Jason Todd today, and they're leaving Dallas at 9:00 Friday morning, down and back. So it's going to be a tough road trip, and North, and then not to mention the team they're lining up against is really talented. So you know you look at South Oak Cliff, and I think in the trenches they'll match up well with North Shore. South Oak Cliff up front is very, very good. I think they'll match up with that veteran North Shore front. I think North Shore is just way too explosive. That's my South Oak Cliff. The last couple of years hasn't been a real explosive team. They've been kind of a plodding defense first running game type team. North Shore's so explosive. I mean, you got Caleb Bailey back for his fourth year. You got DeAndre Hardiman. You got Dion DeBlanc. You got Quanell Farrakhan. They're loaded. And they probably got guys that we haven't talked about that can make plays.
Right.
I'm interested to see how healthy Caleb Bailey is. You know,
me too.
You know, you could tell if you go watch tape of him as a sophomore before his injury, it's shocking how dynamic he was. And then last year he played, but just never didn't seem right. So I'm interested to see if he's kind of back to 100 that dynamic self he was as a sophomore. Because if he's able to run around and make plays, North Shore is going to be really, really hard to stop offensively. Defensively, Charles Ross, Devin Sanchez coming back in a veteran defensive line. I just think North Shore is too explosive. South Oak Cliff will keep it close for a little while, but I think North Shore, too many playmakers, too explosive.
Yeah, it's wild with Caleb Bailey. If you just glance through his scholarship offers, he doesn't have many big schools. And he needs to kind of prove to these people that his knee's straight.
Yeah.
And that may start right here in week 1.
I think it's that. And I think similar to DJ Bailey at DeSoto, just doesn't have the prototype quarterback build. And so you combine that with the knee injury, and I think that's keeping people away. But I think if he has a big senior season, the offers will come.
I always thought DJ was not that this is a North Texas podcast, but I always thought he was not only did he end up the prototypical size, but he's also a little bit pudgy. He always seemed a little stocky there.
Oh, yeah,
and when you look at Caleb's strides, when he's healthy and Caleb takes those strides, it's just like when he gets past, it's similar like we said about Atascocita. When he gets past that first line of defense,
he's gone. He's a thoroughbred.
He's gone.
Yeah, he's
exactly.
Just like a Mustang.
Exactly. He's out of here. I was about ready to say let's dip down into 5A, but I forgot that Fulshire is not 5A. Fulshire's up in 6A.
Cadooty's and they're taking on 6A. Yeah, Cadooty's got.
And they're taking on Pearland. That's a heck of a test, and they play on Thursday as well. Another game we'll have cameras on, so make sure he gets into that media room and gets some of that grub that we've heard about so much. But BJ Gott's third year. Usually third year, you got your guys in there and you've implemented your system.
Sure.
Home game from them. They're taking on a Fulshire team that's a heavy favorite in 26A, even though they are just jumping up in 6A. Man, I want to hear your opinion on this one for sure.
I think this is going to be a tough introduction to 6A for Fulshire. I think Pearland physically is going to match up. They're going to be athletic enough to keep up with Fulshire. Fulshire plays at a very fast tempo. They like to get up and down. Cadooty they like to get out there and up tempo the game, and I think Gott's squad is going to slow it down a little bit. They're going to line up, get under center, run the football, kind of play that old school Katy type football that Coach Gott, the system he came up in. And I think Pearland just matches up pretty well with Fulshire, so I like the Oilers in this one. But if Fulshire wins this, it'll catch my attention for sure. But I give the edge to these are the games at the Rig and Pearland Thursday night.
Yeah.
I would. I'd give the edge to Pearland at home. just it'll be close. So Fulshear will make a good accounting themselves. I think Pearland's going to introduce Fulshear to 6A football and get them ready for hopefully a playoff run later on.
Their kind of way. I got you. They're going to introduce them in a real nice way. Now, this next game I want to talk about is the 6A versus 5A, but it seems like two teams going in different directions. You got Foster taking on Richmond Randall. Foster seems like ever since McDowell left, they're heading down this way, and Richmond Randall, obviously with Landon Callis Willis going, that's freaking unbelievable. It's Williams, excuse me. He's just a freshman, but
I think a lot of the reason Foster's gone down is because Randall opened up. Randall.
Yeah, that's right. That's another reason they snaked all their players.
Yeah.
First, so that's what's going to happen.
Fulshear opened up and kind of cut into to Foster a little bit, and now Randall's kind of it's been tough for Foster, which is it's ironic they're going 6A now, but their talent pool has just been slashed and they really struggled last year. I don't expect it to get much better. I think Randall kind of may run away with this one. Williams Callis is an unbelievable young. We talked about him today at Dave Campbell's. He's kind of got a little, and I don't want to put this on him, but when you watch him play, the first guy that comes to mind is Barry Sanders. Like just how elusive he is, how fun to watch. He's I'm not saying he's going to be Barry Sanders. It's a lot to put on a sophomore,
right?
But the way he plays reminds you of that a little bit. He's a lot of fun to watch. He's dynamic. There's a lot of other guys at Randall who are playmakers, and they got a couple in from that moved in. Deshaun Burton from Needville is over there at Randall now, and they got playmakers. I saw them at the state 7-on-7 tournament. They were very impressive, and so I think Randall at Traylor Stadium, wins this battle of Richmond.
Yeah, that looks like a 2-3 score win as well.
Yeah.
I only put this other one on here, Strake Jesuit against Euless Trinity, because I talked to Coach Fias, and boy, I could trying to get a read on him and what he thought about. He's talking about how he has trouble scheduling who he wants to schedule, and so he just decided, hey, I'm going to take Trinity needs a game. I'm going to take it. We'll travel up there. Yeah. He seemed more impressed by being able to see the Haka live than that kind of speed that he's going to run up against there. I think Trinity may run this one out of the park, but does it give Strake a look at some speed that they may see out of a team like Fulshear down the line? I mean, is this a good test for that?
So I have a rule about non-district games when teams have to travel more than 3 hours. Pick the home team. It's like, I think historically it's like 90%. The team that travels loses in non-district. So Strake's making. I think is it Strake going to New Orleans later this year? Or they're playing New Orleans.
I think so. Yeah, I think
they're hitting the road and playing a lot. Trinity's a tough matchup. Offensively, they're as good as anyone in Texas. Josh Bell is a elite running back. TJ Topu is a great signal caller. They've got that traditional big offensive line that Trinity always has. Defensively, they've got some issues, and they got to get better on defense. I mean, I was at Trinity's playoff game last year at home. They lost to Midland Legacy 62-61 or something. Like they just struggled stopping people. So I think Strake will score. I just don't know if they can keep up with Trinity and stop Trinity at any point. So I'll go with the team from DFW in this one. So the DFW Houston games, we'll split them 1-1. North Shore over Sock.
There you go.
Trinity over Strake. Home teams win both.
That's a good point. Moving down to the Fort Bend district, which is now 21 6A. Hightower's taking on Clear Falls. Now, Hightower took that blow when JoJo Stewart left, and they have a thick non-district schedule. They got Spring Westfield in week 2. They got Clear Falls here, which is a team I would normally pick Hightower, especially at home. But I don't know. What do you think now that they're going to be breaking into QB and trying to figure that thing out?
Clear Falls is a tricky team. They're always kind of solid. Zach Head does a good job down there, keeping them in playoff contention and in discussions to go a couple of rounds deep. I think maybe in 2020, they made it all the way to the fourth round of the playoffs. So
yes, they did. I think they lost to Katie there.
They've had some good years. Hightower, despite all the questions, I was really interested talking to Cornelius Anthony at coaching school. Very quiet confidence about his team. He seemed to have a lot of confidence in his guys and didn't really dwell on losing JoJo to Shadow Creek. Didn't really talk about it very much. He was like, our guys are going to be ready. I like my guys. And so I'll go with a Hightower here. I think this will be a tough game, but I like I think I'll go with the Hurricanes in this one.
Should be an interesting one. Yeah, I'd like to see how
Clear Falls is
they
tricky
do with
though. I enjoy watching them play. They play a good brand of football, and they're always they kind of punch above their weight in a lot of the time.
Another clear team that's playing a Fort Bend team is Clear Springs hosting Ridge Point. It's going to be hard for me to pick against Ridge Point, especially when they have so much experience at quarterback. But you know what? Salazar's been at Clear Springs behind center for quite some time too. Talk to me about that battle.
Yeah, Clear Springs, year in, year out, is probably the best team down there in Clear Creek ISD. Coach Renfro, before him, they've had 2 or 3 different head coaches, and they've all come through and won football games. They do a good job. They have a good base of talent to pull from. Down there in Galveston County, they do a good job. But, man, Ridge Point, love Austin Carlisle. Love what Rick LaFavors has going on there at Ridge Point. I do think the opening of Crawford, which I think we'll talk about Crawford in a little while, is going to eventually hurt Ridge Point. But right now, that senior class, loaded. Just talent out the wazoo, and they've got that dude at quarterback in Austin Carlisle.
Yeah.
So I'll go with Ridge Point.
He's willing to take some hits, too. That's the thing I like about him most. We've been doing off-season summer stuff and our campfire stuff. And anytime I have a chance to use this one play he did against Travis where he got hit 4 times in the end zone, in his own end zone, and still rolled out of each of the hits and went 50 yards down the midfield. I use it because he can take a hit and keep on. The Timex man, I guess they call him.
He's great.
But listen,
I think he's committed to University of Houston, I believe.
Yeah, he's going to Houston. Yep.
Yeah, staying home.
Talk to me about you brought him up, so talk to me about Crawford. They're playing Clements in the first game. Man, we see a lot of this over the years, over the last couple of years, especially new schools opening up and getting into the UIL and starting to finally play a UIL schedule. It's a struggle at times, but you kind of hit on it a little bit. A team like Crawford, how long is it going to take for them to kind of get their footing and get some wins?
Year one's tough for sure, especially early in the year. You remember a couple of years ago when Iowa Colony opened up, they took some hits that first half of the season, and towards the end of that first year, you can kind of see things coming together, and they had a great year last year, and I expect them to do great things this year. I think we could see something similar from Crawford. They've got a great base of talent to pull from there in Fort Bend County. I think early, though, it's going to be tough, especially they're a 4A playing a 6A in this game. And Clemens, Coach Darnell's done a great job kind of getting that, because Clemens for a long time there was kind of bottom of the barrel in Fort Bend ISD. Coach Darnell got in there from George Ranch and turned him around, and he's gotten into the playoffs a couple of times and done a good job turning them around. They're going through a little bit of a rebuild right now, but I don't think Crawford has any seniors, and so that hurts. And so I'll go with Clemens in this one, but I don't expect Crawford to struggle for very long. They may only be in 4A for 2 years. They'll probably move up to 5A in this next alignment. So I would look out for Crawford next year. But don't be surprised if late in the year Crawford's starting to play good football and maybe pulls an upset or 2 in district play and causes some headaches when you're figuring out playoff scenarios. But in this game, week 1, I'm going to go with Clemens.
Go with Clemens there. Excellent. All right, well, I saved the best 6A game for last, or at least the game I think is the best 6A game. Our DQ game of the week, Shadow Creek and Summer Creek. They're playing week 1. They very well could be playing week 14 as well in the Division II regional final here. Tell me what you think about this game. I would normally, just looking at athlete for athlete, I'd probably skew it towards Shadow Creek, but this game's at Turner Stadium, so that gives a little advantage that way too. And boy, are they hungry to get that 60-point loss off their freaking minds that they've had to think about the whole summer.
Yeah, it's that's probably been sitting with Summer Creek for a while, and Shadow Creek is as talented at the skill positions as anyone. They're just Corey Watson, Chris Thomas, I believe, at wide receiver. We got 2 kids committed to Baylor.
Kobe Sellers.
Yeah, Kobe Sellers at A&M commit. They got a linebacker committed to TCU. They're loaded. Shadow Creek is loaded. They got the quarterback now. So Ja'Cory Watson doesn't have to play quarterback anymore. He gets to go back to his natural position at receiver. And JoJo Stewart is a veteran, experienced quarterback. My question with Shadow Creek and what makes Summer Creek a tough matchup for him is in the trenches. How does Shadow Creek match up front on both sides of the ball? Typically, Summer Creek always physical. Kenny Harrison's teams always play physical. They do a good job. They've got a defensive end, Chad Woodfort, committed to TCU, who's a monster, great player. Blake Thomas at quarterback for Summer Creek really emerged late in the year. You can kind of see him grow up. I saw it in the second half of the Hightower game in the regional final last year. You could see him kind of growing up before your eyes. He's back. He's going to have a lot of the offense on his shoulders because Lloyd Avant graduated and is now at Tulsa. So, interesting game. I think this could be a playoff preview. Week 1, I'll go with Summer Creek because of the trenches, but I don't have a great feel for this one, but I think it's going to be a fantastic ball game. I'm actually going to be at my game Friday night in the Metroplex. I'll probably have my tablet out and be watching this game as it happens because I'm that interested in to see how it goes.
Yeah, and not only if it stays close, it'll really be interesting to see as the season progresses how both of these teams grow. Can Shadow Creek's offensive line grow enough to get, and break over that thing and go 14 weeks, and then Summer Creek, can we get a different playmaker besides Blake Thomas as we go along here and see what they can do?
And I want to see Shadow Creek develop a consistent running game. They really didn't do that last year. Their running game was basically a lot of QB runs. So and JoJo Stewart can run, but I think of him more as a thrower first. So I think they need to really find a way to develop that running game in balance because their 3 receivers match up with anyone in Texas.
Yeah, you can't throw it every single down, right? Moving into 5A, you saw Galveston Ball kind of going through the motions in their Houston ISD district. Well, they're in a tougher district now, and they've always scheduled a little bit tough in the non-district. They make sure they try to keep it in the 5A, but Manville's jumped up to 6A, so they're playing a 6A team. They're playing at Freedom Field. Tell me what you think about Ball against Manville.
Yeah, interesting test for Galveston Ball. Obviously, Jonah Williams is the headliner in this one. Just recently committed to Texas, one of the best athletes in the country. Been hearing about him since he was a freshman. I think he scored touchdowns 7 different ways last year. He's just a freak show athlete. Manville, Kirk Martin, second year back in Manville, back in the saddle. He's got a really good quarterback. Roman Seymour is there to lead the offense. I look at this and I think Galveston Ball. They're in a much tougher district now. They're not in HISD anymore.
No,
they're in there with Lufkin, Port Arthur, Barbers Hill, Kingwood Park. Good football teams. So this is going to get them ready for district. I go with Manville in this one. Galveston Ball, as good as they have been, the last 2 years at least, they haven't beaten anyone at or above their level. They've beaten up on the teams they should beat up on. There's something to be said for that. But when they play someone in their weight class, they just haven't been able to get it done. I think Manville is more than
come close, but they haven't been able to get it done.
Yeah,
they've come close. I know that Magnolia playoff game, they held them to 17, but they just couldn't score more than 7 themselves. But
so I'll go with Manville in this one.
Going back to Jonah Williams, how do you think he's going to be as a fit over there at Texas? Boy, he kind of, when he gets in the defensive side of the ball, he sure does remind me of Earl Thomas that used to play there on defense for Texas.
Yeah, I think he's one of those guys.
He can play wherever you want to play.
Yeah, I think he's one of those guys you just get him on campus and you figure it out. Like, he's that talented. You could put some weight on him and play him as a space linebacker. Linebacker who can play in space. But, in today's day and age of spread football, you need those kind of hybrid linebacker safety types to play. It's like I could see him doing that. I could see him playing safety. I think he could play offense if he really wanted to. He's special.
Right.
And he's a great baseball player too. He's a
that's right. He's supposed to be a good left fielder and pitcher too.
Well, maybe Texas's baseball coach. Maybe Schlossnagle will try to get him out there on the baseball field too.
Exactly. We're giving him a bobblehead this week, and that's one of the questions. Man, you can try to sneak on that baseball field too and play 2 sports.
Wouldn't surprise me if he got drafted very high in baseball. He's that talented.
Because there was a time, last summer, there was a time where there was crazy rumors about him going to IMG. And he was,
I'd heard
the way the rumors go, he was set to go until the whole Galveston community started saying, Mike Evans never he stayed in his community. He never broke out on his community like this. I wouldn't do it if I were you. And it kind of got to him. But, of course, when Mike Evans was playing, there was no IMG.
Selfishly, I'm glad he stayed.
Yeah, absolutely.
We get to watch him play, and I think there's something to be said for kids who stay, and play for their. That's the special thing about high school football is you play for your community, you play for your neighborhood, you play with your guys who you grew up with, and people are and I think it's just a society. This is a whole another tangent, but people are always looking ahead and trying to figure out what's next instead of enjoying the moment.
Yeah, what's happening now,
and you talk to guys who rush through high school and they say, I wish I'd have had, one more year. And guys say, their senior year was their most fun year. Because once you get out of high school, it becomes a job. If you're good enough to play at that next level, it's a job at that point. You may get some NIL money, but you're working. You're an employee basically at that point. So high school is like the last time that you're playing with your friends because you love the game. So I not rushing that is a good thing. So I'm glad Jonah stayed around and we get to enjoy him for one more year.
Yeah, he gets to lead him into the new district. That's a lot tougher than they were in.
Galveston Ball remodeled their stadium last year. It's really nice. I've seen some tape on it. It looks a really nice neighborhood stadium, Corville Stadium.
It's interesting you brought up new stadiums because my next game is LaPorte against Deer Park, and LaPorte was all excited about going with their new stadium, but I don't think it's quite ready yet, so they'll be playing their home games elsewhere.
Coach Bernithi sent me a video. It is not ready for football quite yet.
No.
And I know they're kind of hoping maybe they'll have it ready. Maybe if they can rush it through for the last game of the season. I got a lot of work to do though. It's going to be nice when it's finished. It's going to be real nice.
And it's too bad too because they got two great running backs too.
Yeah, LaPorte's going to be really good.
He calls them Thunder and Thunder. He calls them Thunder and Thunder since they're the same people.
Yeah, that wing.
And they're taking on Deer Park.
That's an old rivalry. Yeah, that's an old rivalry. I know LaPorte folks will wear their hunting gear. They're going deer hunting. And this one, it's an old rivalry in that part of the area. Not a lot of love lost between those two. Deer Park's much larger than LaPorte now. LaPorte, that wing T offense is something else, so they do a good job. This is a rivalry game. It could go either direction. I'm gonna lean to LaPorte, but I wouldn't be surprised if Deer Park took it. It's a coin flip game in my opinion.
Yeah, I kind of felt bad for Deer Park in realignment. I don't know how they were reading it, but they're like, "Oh, North Shore's moved down to 23-6A. We're in good shape. We stay away from and you're moving to 24-6A, so you're going to be playing them in the first round again if things work out like that." But can't stay away from those guys from North Shore, apparently. But that's the way it goes. Marshall against Friendswood. What do you think about this one? Marshall, we talked about ad nauseum in our preview podcast about how they have the athletes. They just got to come together, put that name back up on the map, and they're taking on a decent Friendswood squad.
Yeah, this is a game I don't have a good read on because you're right. Friendswood is always decent. They're always kind of around that playoff discussion. They're not going to overwhelm you with a lot of talent. They got an alum there, Jordan Johnson. Used to be coaching at Denton Geyer. Came home as I think his second or third year back home in Friendswood. Done a good job. And Friendswood always kind of consistently, even under Koopman, just kind of always right there in that playoff mix. They have a good year. They go 9-3, that kind of thing. Don't ever really make a deep playoff run, but they're always kind of, I would say, playing above their grade, so to speak. Where Fort Bend Marshall the last couple of years has probably underachieved. And I think you ask James Williams that, he would probably agree. I mean, they haven't gotten it done and been where they should be. This is a loaded Fort Bend Marshall team. They're experienced, and I think last year's playoff loss, kind of like when we talked about with Summer Creek, they can't wait to get out there and kind of get the bad taste out of their mouth.
Yeah.
I think we'll see the same thing with Fort Bend Marshall. I think we're going to see a Fort Bend Marshall team come out this week with a little bit of a sense of urgency, with something to prove against Friendswood. So give me that veteran Fort Bend Marshall team. They're really, really talented, and that 9-5A Division II is going to be one of the most fun districts to watch in the state of Texas.
Yeah, no doubt. Sounds like there's a motto in there for the season somewhere. Snap out of it, or let's get our act together, or something that they can wear on T-shirts. I don't know. I'm not.
James Williams is not one for slogans. He's a hard worker. You watch Fort Bend Marshall, and they come out and they're lined up, almost military style, and they try, very disciplined, and it's no nonsense. So I imagine it's a lot of hard work and sweat equity being put into that thing right now.
Sweat equity, I like that one. All right, Iowa Colony and Stafford, they played a decent game last year, but now Iowa Colony's moving up. And talk to me about this game. I know you're hyped up on Iowa Colony. We talked about that last week, but
I am.
Talk about what you think is going to happen on this one.
Yeah, I like Iowa Colony a lot. They were district rivals last year. Stafford gave them a good game, but Iowa Colony brings everybody back. Everybody.
And Stafford doesn't.
All 52 players return.
Yeah.
Iowa Colony big. I think the Pioneers roll.
Putting them to it.
I think so.
Hey, if you want to go to a game that I think is going to be a quick game, if you only have 2 hours to wait to see a game, Belleville and Salina, where that ball may go in the air 4 times.
Yeah,
that's one to see. You have to drive up to you probably drive longer to get to the game than the game will actually take.
You might,
depending on how the bands play. Talk to me about who you think's going to pull. That's a nice. I mean, Belleville, they put themselves a nice non-district schedule together. They're dabbing around in 4A and 3A a little bit, but they're playing the power teams in these districts, or in these classifications, and Salina's certainly one of them.
Yeah, well, when you run the slot T and you played for a state championship the year before, people aren't going to be lined up to play you. So this is a game that kind of got put together a few weeks after realignment because Belleville and Salina are both like, we don't have anyone to play. You just want to play? And they were like, sure. So Belleville has the star power. You know, D.D. Murray, the running back's gotten some D1 offers. They've got DJ Sanders, the A&M commit, who's just a freak show. I mean, it's not fair to be that big and move that fast. He's like a cheat code. He's like a creative player on NCAA. You know, you just make your guy like 320 pounds and can run a 4.6 or something. That's DJ Sanders. He's ridiculous. They got a defensive end, Dante Keys. I think you picked up an offer from Sam Houston recently. So Belleville's got some star power. They graduated a lot of the worker bee type, the glue guys from last year's team. Right. So they got to replace that, but they got the star power back. You know, Salina, this is going to, if, you know, for folks who are real high school football nerds like me, this is a Salina team that harkens me back to G.A. Moore. Early 2000s, Salina, where they would just line up and just get in the I formation, 2 tight ends, and just run right at you and just overpower you. That's what Salina did when they were in their heyday in the late 90s, early 2000s. They were winning 75 games in a row, winning state championships in 3A. They've got 2 good running backs, Harrison Williams and Logan Gutierrez, who can get it done. They got a big physical offense. That matchup of DJ Sanders versus the Salina offensive line is going to be a lot of fun to watch. With Salina's got a 5A offensive line. They're that big and that physical. So a fun matchup. I lean to Salina just barely in this neutral site game, but I think it's going to be a fun one to watch.
Tell you what, if they can't handle DJ Sanders with the guys they have on the team, Coach Elliott, and he just throw on a uniform, and that dude is jacked up. He might be able to stand up with him at whatever age he is now. I always hate shaking his hands because I end up fracturing 3 or 4 of my fingers. I was like, why don't we just do this or something? We don't need to shake hands.
Coach Elliott is high on the list of guys I would not want to get on his bad side. He's a really nice guy, but he's a fit coach.
He is a fit coach, man. I stay away from the weight room, and he takes in all my time for that time I'm missing. I put this next game on just because I'm interested to see what you. I don't know a lot about either one of these teams coming back. Sealy against Navasota. They have history of playing good football there, but what do you think with the Rattlers going up against Sealy?
Yeah, Navasota struggled a little bit. Brand new head coach Trey Allen coming over from Cold Spring, taking over there in Navasota, there in the Brazos Valley. Sealy, I think, is going to be a lot better this year. Second year under head coach Clint Finley. He got there late last year, really didn't have an off-season chance to really kind of implement his system. He's had a full off-season. So you got a coach in his second year with his first full off-season in Sealy versus a team with a brand new head coach in Navasota. So give me the team with the experience and experience under their head coach. So I'll go with Sealy in this one.
Well, and lastly, I want to talk about Sweeney and Bay City, mainly because I want to talk about Bay City. We talked about them a lot. This could be a start of a really special season down there for the Black Cats, especially since they've shifted off into Region 4. Talk about what you would need to see for them to make you feel like they're getting off to a good start when they take on these Sweeney boys.
I think that Sweeney had a real veteran team last year. So Sweeney's interesting because they're in their second year under their head coach, Jay Seibert, who came up from Rockport Fulton. But they graduated the house. Like, they graduated a ton of senior. They were very senior heavy last year, and they turned it around. Coach Seibert's squad, they had a good year last year, just barely missing out on the playoffs after going 0-10 the year before. But they graduate the house. Bay City, bigger school, ton of 3-year starters. Alex Estrada at quarterback, Jada Andrews at running back, playmakers on the outside. We watched them in 7-on-7 and down in College Station do great things. Robert Jones is a Bay City alum. He's got that program cooking. They've kind of been knocking on the door. They just can't get past the East Texas teams. They get to the second round, third round, and lose to Kilgore, lose to Chapel Hill, lose to Lindale, that kind of thing. Well, this year they're going south in realignment, and I think they're energized by that and the chance. I said it preseason. I think Bay City is going to win Region 4, and I think if they don't come out and make a statement in this one, I would be a little bit concerned. I think Bay City is a big favorite, and I expect them to come out and make a statement with a big win.
the interesting thing about Jada is he picked up powerlifting over this past year, and he actually medaled at state in powerlifting. So that's going back on the jacked theme. That's another big jacked running back that's going to take two guys. Somebody grab his leg and everybody else hit him because he's a big bad dude.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to do it for this one. I mean, before we leave, we'll kind of drift away from Houston a little bit because people always want to know where you're going to be at. Where are you going to be at this week? Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Sure. So I'm not going to be in the Houston area until week 3. For those of you who don't know, I live in Dallas, Fort Worth, but I travel on the weekends all over the state. But usually Thursday and Friday I stay close to home, and this week I'm staying close to home just because I got games that are close to the house. So Thursday night, right. I'm going to be in Hamilton, Texas. Thursday night. You know where Hamilton is, Wizzy?
I do not. I know where Hamilton, Ontario is. Are you going to be there?
My wife wishes I was there for sure. No, I'm going to be in Hamilton, Texas, which is just south of Stephenville. So if you know where Stephenville is, it's south of Stephenville. For the Ice Bowl. As we get the Frost Polar Bears versus the Winter's Blizzards.
Winter's Blizzards. Nice. Now I'm going to DQ after this.
Yeah.
I'm going to be at DQ eating a blizzard while you're at that game.
Hey, that doesn't sound bad as hot as it is. So
no doubt.
How do you take your blizzard? I'm a Butterfinger blizzard guy.
Anything that's got peanut butter in it. I take Butterfinger, Reese's Cup. I'm just a peanut butter freak.
What about
my boys actually know me well because today was my birthday and my boys got me a big old thing of Reese's peanut butter cup. So I was like, all right, man. Give your old man diabetes. I appreciate it.
Your candy opinions are better than your soda opinions, Swizzy. I'll tell you.
Yeah, Dr. Pepper. What do you got Friday night?
That's my game Thursday night. Me and Tepper will actually be at that game. Friday night, I'm going to be in. So for those who don't know, Winters is near Abilene. Frost is kind of south, kind of north of Waco, kind of between Dallas and Waco. Friday night, I will be in Godley, Texas, which is south of Fort Worth, for Alvarado and Godley. Godley's opening up a crazy new stadium. If you have not seen pictures of Godley's new stadium, Google it. It's crazy. Their new stadium is unbelievable. So I'll be there Friday night for Alvarado and Godley. And Saturday, I'll be at the Star, the Ford Center, in the air conditioning. I think you'll be there too, right? North Crowley.
Yeah, I will be there.
Lancaster. And then Saturday night, I'm going to head up to Melissa for a nightcap. Melissa is taking on Little Rock Parkview out of Arkansas.
Okay. You'll be analyzing teams from out of state.
Not so much.
You're only looking at Melissa, right?
Yeah.
You'll take a nap whenever.
Enjoying the amenities at their beautiful stadium as well.
I got you. Well, next week is week 2, and we will have some real life data to kind of go through when we talk about the teams. We're not just talking about scrimmages and 7-on-7. We'll know what the heck's going on because they played a game. So
one thing about week 1, people need to realize: don't overreact. Week 1 always has crazy results. There's always some weird stuff that happens. Week 1, we tend to overreact because it's the only data set. It's like week 1 of the NFL season. You lose, and the Cowboys lose, and I think the season, the world is ending. You're celebrating, and I think the world is ending. And if the Cowboys go 1-0, I think they're winning the Super Bowl. And they never do. So don't overreact. Just it's 1 week of data. We'll kind of get into a routine. But if your team plays bad, don't freak out just yet.
Do not freak out. That's an excellent point. Because going back to North Texas, it was only 2 years ago. Alito lost their first 2 games, and
they won.
They didn't freak out. They just went 14 games straight to win state. So
figure it out.
If your team loses, you're going by that analysis. If your team loses, you're going to win state. So
that's right.
Half the state's going to win state somehow this year, but I don't know how that works.
We'll figure it out. Yeah.
All right, brother. I will talk to you next week. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks. See you later.